Hello and welcome back to Harvest Hill Cottage. We have three fun projects for you today featuring recently released molds from Iron Orchid Designs. Let's jump right into our first project featuring Persephone. Now this new mold is probably one of my favorites ever. I'm going to go ahead and pour resin into our mold. This is the amazing casting resin, quick set resin, sets up in about 10 minutes. I'm also pouring a few roses from the Felicity mold as well. Now, once it's set and ready to go, I just go ahead and break the seal, remove my resin mold, and look at that. Look at that detail. Gorgeous, gorgeous. You seriously could not beat the detail from Iron Orchids. High quality stuff. I'm going to save these flowers for another project, but I do think I'll pop one in her hair. I pulled this mirror out of my stash. This is something I found a while ago. I painted it up, added some molds, but it just sat on the shelf. But I think now I know what I'm going to do with it. So I went ahead and painted the mirror a creamy white and then set it aside. Now I'm going to pull out my Conservatory Labels mold. It was released earlier this year. I'm going to make a label using the air dry clay, and then I'm going to pull out my Apothecary labels, also released this year, and I'm going to use the lettering to stamp into the clay label that I made. So you could use these stamps to actually stamp using ink, but you can also make an impression into your medium. And so I'm going to stamp in the word Le Fleur, lovely French word for our French lady. Okay, let's get back to our lady, and I'm going to go ahead and paint up a creamy white. This is raw silk, a beautiful off-white from Fusion Mineral Paint. This off-white is going to act as a base coat on both of our lady and the label that will be attached to the mirror just underneath her. So once I get that base coat on, I go ahead and layer dry brushing and kind of pouncing my paint different earth tones just to create kind of an aged look for our piece. Now I decided to decoupage onto the mirror just to have a nicer backdrop for the molds that I'm going to be adhering. So I used the wet tear technique to tear off exactly what I want to adhere to the mirror. This is a decoupage paper from Jami Ray Vintage. And I'm just going to use Fusion's decoupage gel and go ahead and decoupage my paper onto the mirror. And then I'll have a nice backdrop for the Persephone mold. And by the way, just so you know, all of the products used here in this video can be found on our website at harvesthillcottage.com. Now, because I want to age up Our Lady even more, I added some antiquing gel from Fusion Mineral Paint. And I added it to the label as well. Now I'm going to use E6000 to adhere the Persephone mold and the label to the mirror. So I felt like it was a little drab, maybe missing something. So I took a plastic knife and just scraped on and spread on some of that creamy white that I had added some fresco to, which is just an additive to sort of thicken up your paint. And I sort of wanted it to look like some of the plaster of old was peeking through on this old piece, this old stone piece. And I do think it added the touch that maybe this piece was missing. So yeah, the piece sort of just evolved as I went along, and I was pretty pleased with the way it turned out in the end. And by the way, I will list all of the supplies used in this video in the description box below for your reference. If you like what you're seeing here, do us a favor and give us a thumbs up, and consider subscribing so that you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, let's move on to our second project. This is an old tarnished silver-plated bowl that I've had in my stash for probably years, and we're going to give it a makeover. After spraying it green, I pulled out some of my molds that I had already cast. Here are a couple of those beautiful roses from the Felicity mold and a bee from the Laurel mold that I had poured a while ago. I pulled out my apothecary labels once again. This time I'm going to use one of the labels and stamp it directly onto the bowl and add some wording. So once I get everything laid out exactly as I want it, I go ahead and adhere the roses and the sweet little bee into place. Then I'm going to use some painter's tape just to secure everything and hold it in place while the glue dries. Now, if you know me, you know I'm all about adding layers and interest and dimension to my pieces. So I went ahead and took a lighter shade of green and I did a dry brush technique, but then I also dabbed on some my damp cloth here just to sort of give just almost like a ragged on effect of the lighter green. Then I just went a step further and added a whitewashing technique over top of that. Look at the detail, how it pops with this technique. Now, once it dried, I was ready to add my stamped label and my wording to the dish. So I stamped on my label. I'm going to use a little piece of a thin mount and some of the lettering from the conservatory, oh, sorry, the apothecary labels stamp set. And I'm going to use the words be, B-E-E, joyful. And I'm just using IOD's archival permanent ink, stamping my lettering right into the center of that label. I wanted it to pop even more, so I used some gold rub and buff and just rubbed it into the details of those beautiful molds and around the edge of the dish. So now our discarded tarnished dish has turned into a lovely cottage home accent piece. Okay, for our final project, I had this terracotta basic pot that I had thrifted and decided it needed to get a makeover. So I went ahead and sprayed the pot just to give it a base coat. And then I pulled out that Felicity mold that was recently released from IOD just for some beautiful florals. I used the air dry clay because I knew I needed the florals to be pliable so that I could shape them around the rounded edge of the pot. So I went ahead and just molded or cast several florals from that mold. And then I carefully positioned them on the side of the pot, arranging them into a swag type arrangement. And once I got them how I wanted them, I used my E6000, attached them to the side of the pot, and then I used my handy dandy painter's tape just to keep it in place while it dried. And here's what it is looking like now. And I go ahead and give it a spray with some copper spray paint. Isn't that beautiful? That copper really brought out the details of that floral. But here we go again. Let's add some layering. I pulled out Fusion's uh, color Azure just to give some aged patina to my copper pot. So I pounce it on and then I just use a damp rag to soften it and mute it a little bit. You can also rag it on or even sponge it on if you like. You just play around a little bit and find out what technique works best for you. I just worked my way around the pot with my paintbrushes. I picked up a smaller brush just to work into some of those smaller details on the florals. So I just had my spray bottle handy, my lint-free rags, my brushes, and I just randomly worked my way around the pot until I liked the way that the patina was looking on the copper. And just to make this look a little more authentic and a little more old and aged, I did add a little bit of brown, dark brown paint. It's the color Chocolate from Fusion. And same technique, just to kind of dirty it up a little bit. I pounced on some of that chocolate in random places around the pot. And then I ended up adding a little bit of white around the edges too. So lots of layers, lots of age for this sweet little pot. It's pretty crazy to think that this pot was once a basic terracotta pot, right? And here is the new pot. So cute, so sweet. It's so fun to see what you can create with a few quality supplies and some creativity. Thanks so much for watching us here at Harvest Hill Cottage. We do appreciate you. We hope you'll come back and see us again, and God bless.